Sergeant.
Mr. Duncan. Cindy Sheehan. Mr. Dunphy.
Jamie Gibbs.
Brian
Cindy Sheehan.
It is a condition of wisdom in the archer to be patient. But once the arrow leaves the bow, it returns no more. It should make you shake and sweat. Nightmare. Strand you in a desert of irrevocable desolation, the consequences seared into the vein. No matter what adrenaline feeds the muscle its courage, no matter what gods shine down upon you, no matter what crackling pain and anger you feel in your fist, my friend, it should break your heart to kill. My journals and the poems that began within them were an attempt to understand the world around me, a world that made less and less sense as time went on. I wanted to understand where I was, and the people I pointed the muzzle of my weapon at, whose doors I kicked in or blew in with explosive charges, a flex cup at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. And their wives, their children, their neighbors, I wanted to understand them, to know their history, to know the land itself. I read as much Iraqi poetry and history as I could. I learned a lot from the Iraqi translators, Harith, Jargis, Louis, Soder, and Koder, men whose last names I cannot speak to this very day because it might get them or their families killed.
I went to high school in Iowa City, Iowa. It's where my family still lives, and it's where I most recognize as home. My father was an officer in the Air Force. I was recruited when I was about to get out of high school. The Marines, then the Army contacted me. I decided to give them a chance. I went into their offices for a couple of visits, took the ASVAB to see how I'd do, scored well, needed money for college. 4 years didn't seem like a lot of time to me. I enlisted on August 24th, 2000. I spent 4 years on active duty as a field artilleryman and 2 years in Vermont National Guard as a patient administration specialist. I was stationed at Camp Anaconda, Balad, Iraq. We did traffic control, search and rescue, transportation. I was trained as a rocket launcher driver. We left those in Kuwait. I drove a truck around the country, finding, seizing, and destroying weapons that I had never handled, never had seen before. I'll never forget Jose Perez, a friend, a medic, who was shot to death on May 28, 2003 in Taji. I will never forget the barefooted children. I will never forget what burning fuel from an Iraqi vehicle smells like. I will never forget what it feels like to live with a weapon as if it were part of your body, an extension of you, communication tool, protection, baby, and tool. I will never forget what Anaconda and Taji looked like. I could still drive down every street and get exactly where I needed to. I will never forget how uninformed I felt. I will never forget how to clean my weapon blindfolded, drive my vehicle, or play spades. I will never forget how young and alive I felt. What I'd like to forget? Dead bodies? Destroyed buildings? The sound of incoming mortars? The sad, desperate kids who made a living by selling bullshit to GIs for pocket change, war souvenirs? You know, what I'd like to do is go back to Iraq and help rebuild what I broke. Not as a soldier, not even as an American, but as a citizen of the world community. Not now, but when the military gets out of there. The violence won't end until that happens. I'm a paper maker and bookbinder, an advocate for peace and justice.
Looking out past the barbed wire, whole different world than that bubble of America, or the relative safety of Anaconda. I rub my eyes and realize that the woman with the black veil covering her face is real. This is not TV. People really wear this shit. Turbans, long white gowns, donkeys pulling carts, children playing in the fields. They're farmers. They're picking low-grade cotton and eggplant. If I squint, and ignore the silhouette of my rifle. This could be Florida or San Diego. There's palm trees, there's blue skies, a little man-made stream runs across my view. It would be the ideal vacation spot. If there wasn't yelling on the radio, and reports of shots fired, explosions with rocket smoke trails, and helicopters carrying wounded from Baghdad or Mosul or wherever. If I didn't have to call my tower guard partner down from shooting a little Iraqi boy just for waving at us. Maybe this place would be nice. Or if I didn't have to load my rifle and point it out into the distance. If I didn't have to repeat over and over in my head the escalation of force procedures. Shout, point rifle and shout, fire warning shot, shoot to kill. You're authorized to use deadly force. Climbing down from the tower, you have a sigh of relief. This won't be the last time I'll be doing this, but at least it was uneventful this first time around. You know, they tell us that cameras are allowed on the day shift, so, like the good little tourist that I am, I take advantage of the opportunity. I'm a little embarrassed as I take photos of the men and women and the children playing in the fields, but I know I will be so mad at myself if I leave here without any photos.
I left Syracuse at 0600 hours on November 2nd, 2004, election day for the United States, an auspicious day to begin the journey. I reached Kuwait on November 3rd and had to spend the night there. It was frustrating. I asked if there was any way of getting to Iraq right then, maybe catch a bird on its way out delivering parts. There wasn't a man or woman in the world who wanted to get to Iraq as badly as I did, right then and there, except for maybe a jihadist. And if that was the case, I had something for him. I couldn't stop thinking about hurrying this up. I wanted to grab them and tell them, I am going to Fallujah. The thought of it kicked so much ass. As soon as we reached Anaconda, I decided to call 2-63 Battalion at FOB Scunnien using a defense switch network phone.
2-63, Armor Battalion 2OC, Sergeant Irwin speaking. How can I help you, sir or ma'am?
Sergeant Irwin, this is First Lieutenant Prakash. Listen, man, I'm at Anaconda with some of the Avenger guys and some BRT soldiers. Can you guys come get us? We're supposed to go to Fallujah with the company.
Oh, man. Hey, sir, they took off for Fallujah yesterday. They left Warhorse, and the log pack's already on its way back here.
Oh, shit, you gotta be kidding me.
Sorry, man, but the sergeant swore he'd get you guys to Fallujah. Colonel Tice, one of the engineers, is in charge. Check with him. I'm sure he'll get you guys squared away.
Awesome. Thanks, Sergeant Irwin. Out.
Out, sir.
We had less than 2 hours to empty our R&R gear and pack what we needed for Fallujah. A duffel bag with shirts, socks, PT gear, boots, sleeping bag, 2 extra DCUs, and snivel gear for the cold. I gathered sensitive items like my rifle and night vision goggles that Sergeant Tice had kept locked away. In my room, my platoon sergeant had left a note for me. Pack your shit, check under your pillow, and get your ass to Fallujah. Pray for rain, he added, as a final piece of advice. Because the insurgents use cheap detonation cord, when it gets wet, the IEDs often fail to set off. Pray for rain. I should have asked the chaplain for that prayer. Because I was born in Bangalore, India, I knew that if my friend Chris were here, he would have asked me to do an Indian rain dance. The next morning, we caught a bird and I got us to Fallujah one day before the assault of the city.
There are many moments at the beginning of a deployment that bring you to tears. The days leading up to the day they leave are often brutal. And then, of course, there are the times when you see couples together and you just long for that closeness again. The moment I'm talking about right now stems from the love my husband has for me. The love that prompted him to arrange to have 2 long-stemmed red roses delivered to me every Monday to mark off the weeks he's away. I made arrangements with my friend to pick them up and bring them to me. He then wrote out these notes on Post-its and Gave them to my kids to sporadically put on my vanity mirror when I'm sad, to remind me how much he misses me and loves me. The love that inspired him to record a video telling me how he can't wait to come home. Now, this may seem fine to some of you who have overly romantic husbands. I mean, my husband's romantic too when he's here. He's done some pretty amazing things in the past. It's just that he's never done anything in anticipation of a deployment before. This is our 4th deployment since 2001, and it's left me simply overwhelmed with those moments that make me cry and miss the man that my husband's become even more than I did before. God, please keep my husband safe.
Dear Lisa, I love you so much. Just let our friends and family know I'm doing okay here at Camp Wolf, Kuwait. I'm actually going to leave for Iraq soon. Time to head north. But I thought before I go, I'd give you the Brian Catherman perspective on one not so talked about item here at Camp Wolf. The latrines. Well, the latrines are your typical porta potties. Same ones you see back home at a construction site or a campground. Here, though, they have these big sandbags in the bottom so they don't get knocked around by the fierce winds. Inside, the toilet paper is actually kind of light and fluffy and looks like it was hand-rolled onto the cardboard tubes for some reason. Outside, they've got these 2x4 stands with hand sanitizer tied to the top. If you're lucky, there's some sanitizer there when you're done doing your duty. They're kept up by the locals, so all in all, they're pretty pleasant. What I like the most about the latrines here isn't all that. It's actually the graffiti. Not like for a good time call so-and-so graffiti. No, here, the theme is patriotism. When you're conducting your business, you can see images of the Twin Towers, Lady Liberty, American Eagle. I saw quotes by past commanders-in-chief, Mickey Mantle, Martin Luther King, the Declaration of Independence, bits of speeches even. Oh, there was one that kind of made me sad. It was, going home, guys. I was wounded in battle. Give 'em hell. Private First Class Stephen Bell. It's incredible. You don't even need to bring reading material. It's all just kind of right there for you. I guess there was one I saw that was a little offensive. It was a picture of Saddam Hussein getting kicked in the can by a trooper. The trooper's boot was pretty well lodged up Saddam's rear end. And apparently a considerable amount of force had been involved. Underneath, somebody wrote, "'Cause it's the American way." Anyway, I just want to let you know, that way the next time you go to a public restroom or something, you give some thought to the latrines here at Camp Wolf. Take care. God bless. Brian.
I don't remember panicking. I don't remember thinking about God or life or death or anything introspective. I simply realized where I was and tried to figure out what needed to be done. Besides muttering a profanity, I tried to remain relatively silent. 4 bullets had hit me, and I knew there were still well-armed men nearby with the intention to kill. One bullet knocked my mouth microphone away. Another hit my rifle sling, causing my weapon to slide 4 feet away from me, in the opposite direction I wished to head. The other 2 blasted my arm and lodged in my leg, respectively. I stared at my right hand, which, due to the injury, had rotated 180 degrees facing away from me. Fumbling for the pressure dressing in my sleeve pocket, I continued to drag myself toward cover. Rolling over onto my back, I saw the extent of damage my leg had suffered. Mixed with the earth, debris, a uniform, was a fist-sized hole in my thigh. I think West is dead.
Dude, you're gonna be all right. Just hang in there.
voice was Sergeant Tom Love's. He taught myself and my peers everything we needed to know to survive in combat. Additionally, he was a calm and perfectly level-headed leader. Uncommon in the Marines. Sergeant Love and Sergeant Fennell attempted to position me for an easy drag to safety. So, all the armor and ammo we wear makes any man's weight formidable, but at the same time, we all try to lighten each other's spirits. Fuck! I got fucked up, I said, looking straight into Tom's eyes.
Just hang in there, man. Don't even look at it. Just don't even think about it.
Love, I've been staring at my arm for the past 10 minutes. I know it's all fucked up. Sergeant Fennell quickly straddled me in order to start loosening my gear. See, wearing a long-sleeve desert utility blouse, a flak jacket with ballistic plates, a harness to carry ammunition, makes it difficult to assess any wound. As he bent lower to assist, he slung his rifle to his back, unintentionally jamming his muzzle a few inches into the hole in my leg. Noticing this, I looked up to him and suggested he check his muzzle awareness. I was half smiling. I didn't feel a thing.
Oh shit, dude, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Well, I was out of there, surrounded by people I trusted. I knew then I was going to be okay. I mean, the shots for corpsman up had yielded results. Doc Cordoba was over me patching me up. Someone else from another platoon said they had called the medical evacuation vehicle, warmly named the meat wagon by the Marines. Look, mentally I'm okay, but pretty soon I'm going to need some more morphine. I just closed my eyes and thought of going home. I never quite longed for home before then. I enjoyed my company and was devoted more than anything to working with them. We kept each other alive. I was out of there. They loaded me in the back of the meat wagon and sped to the aid station. Set up in the first secured point in Fallujah, the battalion aid station was established in the train station to the north of town. Kept asking the doctors if I was going to keep my arm. They said, honestly, they didn't know. I surprised everyone later when they saw I got to keep it.
After graduating from the U.S. Air Force Academy, I volunteered for 2 combat tours in Vietnam as a bomber pilot and a fighter pilot. I left the service in the late 70s to be a lawyer, joined the U.S. Army Reserves in the late 80s, and then volunteered for full-time active duty after 9/11. I served as a political and military analyst stationed at Baghdad International Airport, Camp Slade, as well as in the Green Zone in downtown Baghdad. It's been 7 months since my last deployment. I'll never forget the heat. Over 120 degrees Fahrenheit every day, 3 weeks in a row. A constant layer of dust. The surprising friendliness of the Sunni Arabs when we drove 2 Humvees into the middle of an anti-government demonstration. The hard work and dedication of all the soldiers and civilians who served there. We all pulled a minimum 13.5-hour day, 7 days a week. A day off was a half day off work, which I never got, in 160 days of continuous work, including combat patrols. Most of all, the volunteering of the desk jockeys to take the place of highly exposed gunners on combat patrols so the gunners could get a day off. Some officers took pride in knowing that every member of their unit, including higher-ranking officers, chose combat patrol 1 day a week to relieve the shooters. That's something I never saw in Vietnam. While jogging around the base inside the wire, I would often hear car bombs and suicide bombs going off in Baghdad. These explosions would occur everywhere from a few hundred yards away to over a mile away in Al-Jihad City. the neighborhood our Camp Slayer was located in. One day, I heard a bomb go off about a half-mile away, followed by the usual sounds of Iraqi police klaxons and the sirens of U.S. Humvees on patrol. Above the background noise, I heard a very high-pitched keening sound, which I could not at first identify. I stopped to listen. Bombs going off were a constant occurrence on the base. It seems now there was one for every jogging event, but it couldn't have been that much. Anyway, it was frequent enough, so that I just keep jogging, only halfway listening. This time was different, though, because of that high-pitched keening sound. And then it hit me. I was hearing the high-pitched wails and screaming of women and children at the scene of the terrorist bomb. The horrible sounds of abject fear and terror and extreme, unquenched pain. I can't get it out of my head now. The media, all about bombs and blood. I watched Iraqis going on about their daily lives as if nothing was going on. It was going on, but both the Iraqis and the coalition forces seemed to think things were going to get better. The morale that I saw among the Iraqi street cops and the American and British soldiers as they went out on their daily patrols was just remarkable. The media, also too American-centered, giving daily figures for American casualties while ignoring the sacrifices others are making at greater rates than the Americans. The ones who are losing their lives at 3 times our rate are the Iraqi street cops and soldiers, and the Iraqi civilian population is suffering 10 times the casualties we are every day from the terrorist attacks. I've been asked to volunteer again for active duty after retirement, and I am tempted to go back with the Army to Iraq. It was the most rewarding and self-sacrificing thing I've done in the last decades of my life. I'm old by military standards, but am more than willing to go back and do more, as are most of the men and women I served with while in Iraq. Greater love than this hath no man, than that he give up his life for another. I was proud to be surrounded by people like that, willing to do that. Nothing can compare to that kind of love and dedication in this whole world. I pity those who have never given as much, nor been around as many who have.
To yield to force is an act of necessity, not at will. It is at best an act of prudence. If you hear gunfire on a Thursday afternoon, it could be a wedding or it could be for you. Always enter a home on your right foot. The left is for cemeteries and unclean places. Oguk Teramik is rarely useful. It means stop or I'll shoot. Sabah al-Khair is effective. It means good morning. Inshallah means Allah be willing. Listen well when it is spoken. You will hear the RPG coming for you, not so the roadside bomb. There are bombs under the overpasses and trash piles and bricks in cars. There are shopping carts with clothes soaked in food gas, a sticky gel of homemade napalm. Parachute bombs and artillery shells sewn into the carcasses of dead farm animals. Graffiti sprayed on the overpasses. I will kill you, American. Men wearing vests rigged with explosives walk up, raise their arms, and say, Inshallah. There are men who earn $80 to attack you and $5,000 to kill. Small children who will play with you. Old men with their talk, and women who offer chai. And any one of them may dance over your body tomorrow.
First man that I killed, yeah, it disturbed me. But not so much for the loss of human life or the whole killing is wrong concept. Not because I wasn't well within my right to do so, know what I mean? Self-defense. Or as any 5-year-old would tell you, he started it. Yeah, the first man that I killed, I looked in the eye. Right smack dead in the eye. It was actually my aiming point. And you know, I did not see the fire of martyrdom. I did not see the rage like you hear about. I saw neither honor nor vengeance. You want to know what I saw? I saw this look and emotion that can be summed up as, oh shit.
Americans, we remain your constant and faithful servants. Satellites that hover 23,000 miles above our planet in geospatial orbit, feed down into our little dish, and we get to see sports and news and current events. We know what you're up to. Maybe you know one of us personally, or maybe we're nothing more to you than the nameless, faceless soldiers on the news. Either way, we know about hurricanes down south, newest movies, earthquakes in Pakistan, latest football scores. You populate our dreams. Your state of affairs is still part of our thought processes, however hard it may be right now to recall exactly what it felt like to live within those borders. The mind eye plays tricks in you when you're in this environment, always on guard, ready to kill if needed. Yes, we're soldiers, but who wants to live this way? What man in his right mind wants to be threatened all the time? Show me that man and I'll show you a fool. But ask me to show you someone who's willing to live like this, so that Americans back home can live more safely, and I'll show you a couple 100,000.
Hey, the man brought a gun to a gunfight. I brought 30. Yeah, he had about 90 rounds. So what? I brought over 3,000. He had a fully automatic rifle. Ooh. Well, I had pistols, rifles, machine guns, and grenade launchers. And you know what? I had something that he didn't. 16 of my brothers. Okay, what really disturbed me after this, I mean, during the event I wasn't doing any real thinking, just acting and reacting, was that I felt nothing. All right? Nothing. Not a tear, a sigh, or even a melancholy. And I also took no joy in it. The other lack of feeling or emotion, it bugged the shit out of me. Well, I actually shared these feelings, or lack thereof, with people. And it boiled down to this. It wasn't personal, just business. You see, the Army is my job. It's my 9 to 5 or 0400-2359. If you ask me who I am, I'll tell you about my beliefs, my family, and somewhere in there, I may mention that I am in the Army. I mean, killing is my business.
Remain the same embodiment of my fading memories, the portal to my daydreams, the catalyst for hope when hope eludes me. Land of winding roads and fishing holes, pretty pictures and frames, postcard lives, fields of wheat, skyscrapers made of glass, a fireplace, a wood shop, a patriotic song.
Yeah, sometimes we find bombs. Sometimes we don't. Some days, you see the elephant. And on other days, you're stuck between his toes. Man, my men have been shot at, nearly blown up. One of my platoon leaders, right? He had this mortar round then 5 feet from where he stood. And it failed to explode. I mean, I wrote over a 15-pound PE-4 charge that didn't explode because somehow I actually squashed that trigger device.
Just be Americans with your goods and your bags, your lights and your darks, your jerks passing you by at 100 miles per hour in the slow lane. Believe it or not, I do miss you jerks. I will relish the next moment I have to give you the finger. Your high school boy with braces handing you that delicious movie theater popcorn. Your mall food courts, your egg drop soup, your soft shell tacos at 49 cents on Tuesdays, your dryer sheets to make the pillowcases smell so damn fine. Your beautiful face the first thing we see in the morning. And yes, your crying children.
Good night. Sleep well. Rough men stand ready to do violence on your behalf.
November 15th, 2004. My squad, minus 4 Marines on parallel duties, entered the clearance yet another house. Myself and West entered the courtyard and stormed through the half-open door with the same aggression we used on hundreds of houses before that one. Upon entering, we button-hooked straight into a room on our right and found nothing. No furniture, and thankfully, nobody. Perez, DeMarinville, and Kruger, all members of my squad, 3rd Squad, 3rd Platoon, they came behind us. Perez and D-Man, as we called them for short, hung left, and Kruger, our squad leader, came to see how West and I were faring. We heard gunshots coming from what we thought was D-Man and Perez. Kruger and I looked at each other, thinking it was just one of the two shooting a lock off to the center room. Perez started to yell out and say that he was hit and that he was bleeding out. Kruger looked at me with eyes wide and without hesitation dove into the fight. Within seconds, West and I were listening to Kruger scream he was hit. He was shot cheek to cheek, straight through the mouth. And then from a hole in that tan metal door came Soviet-made grenades which clapped like thunder in our doomed hovel. Blood had been spilt. I heard later that a good friend of mine lay dead from a bullet in his head. His first instinct, when all hell broke loose, had been to run to our aid. Being second in command, I knew with Kruger down, the responsibility of the squad was in my hands. See, accountability is paramount. And as a combat leader, you need to know without a shadow of a doubt where all of your troops are. I saw Kruger sitting in safety, feasting his mouth on some large piece of gauze. Someone from another platoon said they had dragged Perez out too. And when I called out for D-Man, my heart rejoiced when I heard his voice. "Do not shoot the door," he shouted. I don't remember what I said, but I know how loud I must have been, the fury I must have exhumed, because he definitely understood what door I wanted to destroy. A young Marine gave it his best shot, and within 3 swings, the door swung open. D-Man was covered in blood. Months later, he said I looked like an angel. I just picked him up and heaved him out the door. A mangled corpse lay next to him. I asked D-Man who it was, and he said, "Just some shithead." Well, my tally was full. I had everyone out of there. But I couldn't find where they had dragged Perez. In a voice so loud, everyone within a mile could hear me. Over any firefight came my words. "Where the fuck is Perez?" Those boots. Those are Marine Corps boots! Those are fucking Marine Corps combat boots! The corpse that D-Man thought was some shithead was Perez. His torso was held together only by his stomach. He had a gaping hole in his chest. It separated his neck from his shoulder. I gathered what I could, and with the help of others, got his broken body to safety. Marines never leave anyone behind, alive or dead.
It begins simply. A fist, white-knuckled and tight, glossy with sweat, with two eyes in a rear-view mirror watching for a convoy. The radio, a soundtrack, adrenaline is pushed into silence, replacing it with a heartbeat. His thumb trembling over the button.
A flight of gold. That's what Safwan thinks. As he lights at Miami, draws in the smoke, and waits in his taxi at the traffic circle. He thinks of summer 1974, lifting pitchforks of grain high in the air, the slow drift of it like the fall of Shatha's hair. And although it was decades ago, he still loves her. Remembers her standing at the canebrake, where the buffalo cooled shoulder deep in the water. Pleased with the orange cups of flowers he brought her. And he regrets how so much can go wrong in a life, how easily the years slip by, light as gold, bright as the street's concussion of metal, shrapnel traveling at the speed of sound to open him up in blood and shock. A man whose last thoughts are of love and wreckage, with no one there to whisper him gone.
Sergeant Ledoux speaks, but cannot hear the words coming out. It's just as well his eardrums burst, for it lends the world a certain calm. Though the traffic circle is filled with people, running in a panic, their legs a blur like horses on a carousel, turning and turning. The way the ties spin on the Humvee flipped on its side. The gunner's hatch he was thrown from. A mystery to him now. A dark hole in metal the color of sand. And if he could, he would climb back inside. Though his fingertips scratch at the asphalt, he hasn't the strength to move. Metal is torn into his rib cage, and within minutes he will bleed to death. But he finds himself surrounded by a strange beauty. The shine of light on a broken, the touch of a woman's hand gently caressing his face. The way his wife might. Amazed at the sight of a wedding ring on his crushed hand. Bright gold, sinking into flesh, going to bone.
She passes the bridal shop on a bicycle with Cepha beside him. Just before the air ruckles and breaks, he glimpses sidewalk reflections in the storefront glass. Men and women walking and talking together. Or not. An instant of clarity, just before each one of them shatters under the detonation's wave. The blast tearing into the mannequins who, a moment before, stood as husband and wife. Who cannot touch one another. Who cannot kiss. Who now lie together in glass and debris, calling this love, as if this is all there will ever be.
The civil affairs officer, Lieutenant Jackson, stares at his missing hands, which make no sense to him, no sense at all. To wave those absurd stumps in the air when just moments before he'd blown bubbles out the Humvee window, his left hand holding the bottle, his right hand dipping the plastic ring in soap, filling the air behind him with floating spheres like oxygen bubbles from deep ocean divers. Something for the children, something beautiful. Translucent globes with their iridescent skins drifting on vehicle exhaust and the breeze that might lift one day over the Zagros Mountains. That kind of hope. Small globes may have astonished someone standing on the sidewalk 7 minutes before Lieutenant Jackson passes out from blood loss and shock, with no one there to bandage the wounds that would carry him home.
Nearby, an old woman cradles her grandson, whispering, rocking him on her knee as though singing him to sleep. Her hands are wet with their blood, and her black dress is soaked in it as her legs give out and she buckles with him to the ground. If you had asked her 40 years earlier if she could see herself an old woman begging by the roadside for money, here with a bomb exploding in the marketplace amongst all of these people, she'd have said, to have your heart broken one last time before dying, to kiss a child given sight of a life that he will never live. It is impossible. This is not the way we die.
And the man who triggered the button, who may have invoked the prophet's name or not, he is obliterated at the epicenter. He is everywhere. He is all things. His touch in the air taken in, the blast and the wave, the electricity of shock. He's the sound the heart makes quick in the panic's rush, the surge of blood searching for light and color. That sound the martyr cries, filled with the word his soul is made of, Inshallah.
Still hanging in the air over Asher Square, the telephone line snapped in two, crackling a strange incantation. The dead hear as they wander confused amongst one another, learning each other's names, trying to comfort the living in their grief, to console those who cannot accept such random pain. Speaking Habib, softly, one to another, amid the rubble and debris. Habib, over and over, that it might not be forgotten.
Staff Sergeant Stephen Bertolino, the cavalry trooper. He was a good guy. He'd come into our office, have a cup of coffee, tell a few jokes. He used to call the lawyer I worked for the boss. Nothing ever really seemed to bother him. He was the kind of guy you'd like to have as a neighbor. He was a good guy, and he gave his life to bring freedom to Iraq. It happened back in November on what we call Rifles Blitz. Oh, those who survived still remember. No doubt still have nightmares. A well-planned ambush, 45 minutes of non-stop gunfire, 2 dead, tons of wounded. In 1924, 29 years before Sir Edmund Hillary, George Lee Mallory, a Brit, tried to make it to the top of Mount Everest. He was actually spotted 800 feet from the summit. He and his companion, Andrew Irvine, actually didn't return to base camp. For a while, there was a debate about whether they'd actually made it or not. Then after a while, people just stopped talking about him. He was here, and then he wasn't. You know, we try to remember those who die. Little by little, they just kind of fade away. But fortunately, dead people have a way of reminding us. In 1999, an American climber, a man called Conrad Anker, actually found Mallory's body 27,000 feet up Mount Everest. Probably the same place he had a fatal fall. And boom, 75 years later, all of a sudden, we remember George Lee Mallory. Who knew? Stephen Bertolino didn't leave anything as dramatic as George Mallory. A file, an old joke. Suddenly we remember him. He reminds us. And we remember what he did here in Iraq. I didn't know him well enough to send him a Christmas card, but I still think of him. Yeah, I still remember. Countless men and women have given their lives in the name of freedom and in the name of human advancement. Countless. Some have memorials, some rest in Arlington, some remind us like Mallory. I guess I'm telling you all this because I want you to put a name on numbers, you know? 48 troopers from the 3rd ACR have died. 48 troopers have gone to Fiddler's Green instead of going home to people who love them and who they love. 48, that's a number. Staff Sergeant Stephen Berlino, that's a name. Please, let's not forget. For God's sakes, let's not forget.
When I first arrived in Anaconda, there was a rumor that if you went and looked out past the barbed wire on the west side, you would see the Garden of Eden. I would scoff at the preposterousness of this, and indeed, some people actually went out to the spot and took pictures. All it looked like to me is a gray field with rows of trees in the distance, but you know, we are nestled in the Fertile Crescent, right? That vast, healthy area between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, and smelling the air today, I'm reminded that where I am standing is the beginning of time as we know it. I mean, that could very well be the Garden of Eden out there, beyond that unimpressive field. And I'm reminded by the warmth of this day that this is where 3 major religions were born, all having one thing in common, belief in one God. It was a radical idea at the time. It was born here, right where I'm standing. Now, I don't claim to follow any particular religion anymore, but I can feel how powerful this place is to human development and progress. I'm amazed that Americans in general totally ignore this place. That is, until their gas prices go up. Yeah, I wouldn't mind coming back here one day. without the uniform on. And I trust that one day Iraq will be safe to visit. But that is still a very long road, with people claiming to know where the Garden of Eden is along the way. I hope it's in Iraq. The good people of Iraq deserve to have it.
So as you may know, our mission is to provide evacuation and medical treatment to American and coalition forces, to the civilian population, and even to the enemy. It's actually written in the Geneva Convention that all are to be treated the same. I hope I can paint this picture so that it hits you the way it hit me. One day outside our base at Asadabad province, a young man, an enemy, was attempting to plant an IED. These IEDs have been responsible for the taking of so many lives here. It was obvious his intent to plant the device, hoping that troops would pass by, resulting in many fatalities and casualties. Well, he failed in this attempt because the device exploded near him, causing severe tissue damage to his chest, his face, one eye. It completely amputated one hand and all but 3 fingers of the other. I tell you this not to gross you out, but so that you understand the extent of his injuries. This man had a task: to kill, to maim American troops. The hate for us must have been there too. So imagine then his next actions. He knew that if he ran unarmed up to the gate, the soldiers would accept him as a casualty and treat his life-threatening injuries, which is exactly what happened. The enemy may hate us, but he trusts us to be obedient to the laws that govern us. This man was delivered to me, well packaged by the on-site medical team, accompanied by 2 armed guards. He was now a prisoner of the U.S. Army, but for me, my patient. It was something how no hateful feelings burst out of me, not even an impulse to yell at him for what he'd done. It was just time to get to work and stabilize him for the trip to the hospital at Bagram, where he went to immediate surgery. En route to the hospital, this man felt at peace enough to gesture me he was thirsty. So I cleaned his lips, which had been stuck together from the explosion, and put a moistened 4x4 bandage over his mouth to at least wet the inside and give him some comfort. I'll not soon forget the look in his eyes, thankfulness I saw in them. I then sedated him, somewhat to ease his pain and to ensure an uneventful transport. I wonder how this man, as he recovers from his surgery, is fed hot meals daily, is bathed, is given water to drink, how overwhelming it must be. For the very hands that care for him belong to the people that he tried to kill. These hands belong to the American people who are the strength of our country. I would like to see this man in 5 or 10 years and see if his story is one of a changed heart, one that passes on to others the character of the American people. Well, my dear family and friends, God has once again amazed me at what he's let me be a part of. I am grateful that he guided me through this event, and hopeful that my injured patient saw the one true God through me. Take care of each other, Travis. And these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love.
The time you're separated from your soldier sucks. I tried to find a better word to use, but that one seemed appropriate, so we'll just go with it. During the week, it's not so bad, because if my husband were here, he'd have to be at work at 5:30 a.m. anyway, and with my husband's position, I'm lucky to see him before 9 p.m. But it's that after 9 p.m. time that gets me. And of course, there are the weekends. I think most would agree that it's the lack of contact that leaves us so lonely. The lack of personal, physical, daily contact with our husbands or wives. It's just part of who we are as the military spouse that makes us able to deal, albeit unwillingly, with the lack of contact. I don't know when we gain this ability, but it's almost as if when we put that wedding ring on our fingers, it became part of who we are. Then there's the lack of all contact. I live on the East Coast, and it's about 8 a.m. here. It's 4 p.m. in Iraq. We're on a whole different time schedule, and that too sucks. Can't find a better word. So in order for them to call us, since it's not so easy for us to just pick up the phone and call them, they either have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and try and catch us before we go to bed, or they have to stay up until after midnight and try and catch us as we're coming home. Not to mention, where my husband is, commo sucks. There's that word again, but honestly, it just works. I think it was easier on me when we were living in Europe, and it was just this 1 or 2 hour time difference. We were literally living in the same day, but now it seems like we're further apart than ever because we're living a day apart. So you get a call on Monday afternoon and you breathe a sigh of relief because you know he's safe. You can actually relax that evening. But sometime before you go to bed, you realize he's starting his day and it begins all over again. And then days go by. And you check his email and he hasn't checked it. Lack of contact. And you start to wonder about his safety. And you know in your reasonable mind that no news is good news, but your unreasonable heart starts to doubt the lack of contact. So you watch the news more than you should. You check eye casualties to see if there have been any more casualties in his area, and you wait for the phone or the doorbell. And when that doorbell does ring, those steps are the longest you've ever taken in your life. You're just begging God not to let it be a notification team. And you open the door and it's the friggin' mailman. Dude, leave the package at the door. I've met women over the past few years who've lost their husbands, and they all say the same thing. That the last thing they expected when they went to the door was for that team to be there. Now, after 4 years in my 4th deployment, that's the only thing I expect when someone's at the door. Thus, everyone I know to call ahead before they come over, and when I say this, they look at me like I'm nuts. Maybe I am, but you do what you have to do to get through this, and if that makes me sound crazy, so be it.
Went into my room and stood there for a few minutes. I was mesmerized by my 2 beautiful girls. Bren was asleep on the bed on her back, just like Papa. Her knees were in the semi-bent, semi-laying position, and her eyes were half open so you could see her eyeballs moving, just like Joel. And, well, Faith, she was sacked out in her flowered sleeping bag, and she was on her side, just like me, her knees curled up like Mama. But where she reminds me the most of Joel is her talking. She can carry on a whole conversation in her sleep. Just the other day, she sat up and she said, "Mama, I don't want it." And then she laid back down and she slept for a whole 30 minutes. And just the other day, she sat up and she did this little hand puppet story that she learned at school, and why? 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 I know that I'll always have my memories. And I'm grateful for that. I'll always have a part of Joel with me. Always. Great. And someday when I'm better, I will have fun talking about these things, writing down all the things that the girls inherited from their papa. And I could laugh or smile someday because Joel, he had some damn funny habits like sleep eating and a lot of things. A lot of things that I'm sure will pop up in my girls when they get older. I love these girls, and I thank God that I have them with me to keep me going and to keep me sane. Or somewhat sane anyways. That point is debatable on whom you talk to.
A soldier came in tonight to borrow some equipment so he could get ready for a mission. It was about 2100 hours, about 9 p.m., and I was getting curious about what they were getting ready to do. Where y'all going, I asked. Shadow run, he replied. A shadow run is when a gun team runs behind a convoy as extra security. The extra combat power gives the entire convoy added flexibility to maneuver against the enemy in the event of an attack. I mean, the practice itself, it's not unusual, but it brings on new meaning when they're going north. North bad. And we're in the middle of Ramadan, which brings an increase in insurgent activity. Be safe, I demanded. God, I hope so, he replied as he walked out the door. We are down to the last couple of months of our deployment, and I am anxious for the day when I don't have to worry about stuff like this anymore. I mean, I'm looking forward to having a normal conversation with my coworkers, and I imagine it going something like this. Hey, Gary, where are you going? To a meeting. Okay, be safe. Okay. Yeah, I can picture it now. That would be a good day. John.
So, you come back and you're so glad to have a shower for more than 2 minutes, but it's like, now you're supposed to just drill? So I'm like, that's it? I've gone over the hump and now what? Army Reserve Sergeant Lisa Dunphy, intelligence analyst.
When I left Germany, I thought, gosh, I can't stand being in the military. Blah, blah, blah. I remember the older enlisted men saying to me, son, when you get out, you're going to miss it. Miss it. And I was like, no way. But sure enough, I miss the responsibility. I want people to take responsibility for what they've done. You don't see that in civilian life. Army Reserve Sergeant Michael Kelly, Civil Affairs.
On a day-to-day basis, people are not quite as tuned in as they could be. They're like, my kid's not over there. They're real helpful when it comes to wounded vets, but on a day-to-day basis, it's like, psh, it's not my kid. Army National Guard Sergeant Jared Jalbert, Pipeline Security.
I don't think the other mothers understand. I mean, the first thing they always ask me is, how could you leave your kids? They're not tuned in to what's going on internationally. They're soccer moms, and their world is the school. I always find myself sitting with the dads. Marine Reserve Major M. Naomi Hawkins, Public Affairs Officer.
You know what's really amazing? All the people that say, well, Chris, you know, I don't support the cause, but no matter what the cause, I will really always support the troops. That just dumbfounds me. I asked this one guy, I says, well, why don't you support the cause? And he says, well, I watch the news. Well, I says, That's your problem. Staff Sergeant Reserve Chris Bain, Reconnaissance and Chemical Weapons Specialist.
We left Iraq in February '05 and landed in Lunstall, Germany in a blizzard. It was 80 degrees in Iraq. All the guys were looking through their duffels trying to find something warm to wear, and I was just staring out the window at snowy Germany buzzing by, trying to figure out what had happened. Married guys were hugging their wives and kids, and us single guys went back to an empty barracks with no sheets on the beds. I walked out to the shopette, and it was out of beer. Army Specialist Garrett Reppenhagen, Cavalry Scout.
You watch TV and there's nothing on the news. Hardly ever. It's as if the only people affected by this war are the people in uniform and their families. I don't know, it just seems like such a small population bears a big burden. Army Sergeant Dustin Conover.
I get mad a lot. There've been lots of times I've almost gotten into a fight. I feel like fighting. Even if someone looks like he can beat me up, I don't care. Marine Corporal Jose Rosales, infantry squad leader.
The common misperception that people have about war in general is that it's glamorous and glorious and wonderful. And it isn't. Army Sergeant Kevin Benderman, mechanic.
Gosh, there are so many people here who don't know what it's like to wear the uniform and serve their country overseas. I'm really grateful. Army Reserve Sergeant Magda Khalifa, Civil Affairs.
I talk to a lot of guys, and it's hard for us to adapt. I mean, the noises scare us, the nightmares we have problems with. For me, it's hard to hold a job. It's hard on my family. My dad says he can look into a GI's eyes and tell who's been over there. Army Reserve Sergeant Casey Christensen, Transportation Specialist.
These guys keep coming back saying they got PTSD. What is that? I mean, get over it. I've seen more and done more than half those guys, and I don't have any problems, so what's the big deal? I'm a National Guard Specialist, Eric Gainey, gunner.
My first week back, I was the best man in the wedding. I had a Vietnam War veteran come up to me and handed me $50, and he said, "Take your wife out to dinner. I appreciate what you did." We didn't get the welcome we deserved when we got back, and I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to go out and have yourself a good time. Navy Corpsman Jim Weller, Hospital Corpsman.
It was good to see some trees.
Yeah.
Something other than the sand. To get here with some fresh air, without the smell of oil burning in the air. Army Sergeant First Class Darren Jones, Field Artillery. It's hard to look at Americans, not to say, you're fat, you're lazy, and you don't have any idea what you have. First time I walk into McDonald's and I hear somebody complain about not having enough ice in their coat, I'm gonna punch them in the face. Army Reserve Specialist, Ernesto Hebe, medic.
Yeah, it's tough being here and watching the news, seeing that the guys that I went with are going back. I mean, seeing Marines every day dying on TV, man, it made me want to go back. I got out, took this job working in security for what, $13 an hour? It didn't mean anything. I mean, luckily, I got out, took this job at the fire department, and got the therapy. Even if I have nightmares or flashbacks, now it's just an experience I had. Some guys get out, and they hang themselves. Marine Corporal Daniel Finn, infantry.
Let me tell you what hard work really is. Hard work is seeing your oldest son, your brave and honorable man-child, go off to a war that had, and still has, no basis in reality. Hard work is worrying yourself gray and not being able to sleep for 2 weeks because you don't know if your child is safe. Hard work is burying your child 48 days before his 25th birthday. Hard work is holding your other other 3 children as they lower the body of their big Baba into the ground. Hard work is not jumping into the grave with him and having the earth cover you both. But, dear George, do you know what the hardest work of all is? Coming to the realization that the leader of the country that your family has fought for and died for generations lied to you and betrayed your dear boy's courage and exploited his honor and exploited his loyalty to his buddies. Hard work is knowing that your son had his future stolen from him and that you have had your son's future and future grandchildren stolen from you. Hard work is knowing in your soul that there are so many that have profited from your son's death. When I despair, I realize that all throughout history the way of truth and love has always won. There have been tyrants and there have been murderers, and for a time they seem invincible. But in the end, they always fall. Think of that. Always. Gandhi.
As they hit the metal around us. Good Lord, where the hell was it coming from? Shit. It was funny as hell as we looked around bewildered. It's a funny thing about getting sniped. You're probably waiting for me to elaborate. But I can't. That's it, it's funny. Okay, so some guy has you in his sights, and he's trying to kill you, but he hasn't yet. And the bullets are coming damn close, and you don't know where he is. That's funny. Anytime You come real close to death, but live? That's absurdly funny. Maybe it's also funny that someone's shooting little bullets at this huge tank, a tank that survived 10 rocket-propelled grenade strikes in Bakuba in a single day and never stopped rolling. But here we are, standing bald to Filade, because that's where the best view is. I licked my teeth. My mouth started feeling like a chia pet. I had a beard now. All of us needed to get out of our tanks. Our legs and backs were killing us. We climbed out of our hatches. As we did, bullets started snapping around us again. We scrambled off the turret onto the ground behind the hull. Once we were safely there, we laughed some more about getting sniped. Man, I gotta brush my teeth. The only thing accessible was 20-ounce Riptide Rush Gatorades in the bustle rack for rinsing my mouth. I took a few breaths, laughed some more, and scrambled back on the turret. I reached into the bustle rack, grabbed a bottle of Gatorade, and scrambled back down to safety. I brushed my teeth and rinsed out with the Gatorade. It was pretty gross tasting, but I felt like $1 million afterwards. I grabbed an electric shaver and buzzed my face. My face was filthy and covered with dust, but it didn't matter. I felt just a smidgen cleaner now.
Hey, there's some guys crossing the road!
I looked down and saw 3 guys cross the road from north to south and go into the hotel. They were too far out of range to engage with the coax machine gun. Damn!
Let's hit it!
Staff Sergeant Terry and I began to pound the building with heat rounds. Even if he couldn't bring it down, anyone inside was definitely getting a mouthful of 120 mm.
Ah, shit, there goes some more!
5 more guys scurried across the road and went into the building. What the fuck? For the next 20 minutes, guys, in groups of 3 to 5, crossed the road and went into the building. Boom! An explosion went off right where they had gathered. It was dead in the center, where the guys had just disappeared. Boom. Boom. Boom.
Oh shit, look at that! No way that just happened.
I was in shock. It looked like volcanoes were erupting. But that wasn't what shocked me. On top of the explosion, bodies went flying up straight in the air. It wasn't like the movies. It was as if some child threw action figures up into the sky, end over end. Like the petals of a flower blooming in fast forward on the Discovery Channel. It was unreal. Each explosion threw 3, 4, or 5 terrorists up into the air. Later that afternoon, we pulled off the objective and let the rest of the BRT occupy the ground. When we reached the logistics resupply point, some guy, Toby Harmon, and some lady from CNN were looking for me. I learned that they wanted to interview me, but I had no idea why. The reporters found me on the ground and started asking me a few questions. Major Johnson was serving as a 1st Infantry Division historian. He was operating in some kind of public affairs role, so it felt good to have him there. I was extremely skeptical about talking to the media. For one, I didn't want to say anything that would get me in trouble. Second, I didn't trust them to portray things how they happened. I didn't killing the bad guys. I didn't want to come across looking like some bloodlusting warmonger. I described the situation as it unfolded. I tried not to show any excitement. I stuck to the facts until they asked me what I saw. And I knew that I loved what I saw. But nobody back home would understand that. Hey, sir. Can I tell them what I saw? I saw bodies flying and all kinds of crazy shit. I don't know what I can say or not.
Yeah, That's fine. Tell them what you saw.
I felt a lot. Man, when those rounds flew, bodies went flying up in the air. It was fucking awesome! Because I had been so frustrated that I couldn't kill all the bad guys who were right in front of us.
We're not all walking cliches who think your ability to work where you want and vote and associate with whomever you choose are hinged in our deployment in Iraq. But you know what? Our work here is part of the collective effort through the ages that have granted you those things. So don't forget about us, because we can't forget about you. Just be whatever you choose. Let fate and destiny and blind luck and synchronicity guide you. Just please be constant. Back to school and aggressively pursue my writing career. And grow a goatee. And sit in my living room like an armchair quarterback the next time America goes to war. And write a blog for the soldiers I see on the news. And sponsor one. And join the VFW. And examine the political process. And explain it to my kids. And protect them. And live on in that bittersweet but oft-taken-for-granted blind bliss of democracy, in liberty and justice for all.
Well, it's New Year's Day 2007. I've been out for 4 years. My husband's been in for 14. So our little girl, she's going to turn 4. I'm going to be 26, and he's going to be 32. Time flies. So I'm here in our little flat in the old part of Army housing at the post, and as I watched the ball drop in Times Square on TV last night, I felt my heart drop with it. I'm grateful that my husband's here beside me, not deployed like he was last year, or like he will be this time again next year. The reason my heart dropped with that ball is that this year will bring yet another deployment to an unjust and illegal war, in which my husband has already served 2 tours, including the invasion. I realize I'm not even mad anymore, though, like I was last year when I rang in 2006 alone in the same flat. A little mad, maybe, but mostly just tired now. You know? Tired of my whole family just getting jerked around by this government's decisions. I'm tired of having to watch my husband, who's the best sergeant I ever had the honor of taking an order from, just get treated like a pawn. I'm tired of fielding those questions from friends and family about when the next deployment will be, where, how long. I'm tired of wondering if he'll come home from the next one. Time to see me graduate with my civil engineering degree. I'm tired of trying to explain to our little girl why Daddy's truck is in the driveway, but he's not upstairs. I'm looking at my husband's statue of the Buddha. Thinking about its meaning makes me even more bewildered. You know, true to his Asian heritage, my husband is a devout Buddhist. We're both pacifists. We don't even believe in war. But that's not how we felt when we took our oaths of enlistment. No, we wanted to serve. We wanted to do our duty for this country. But neither of us ever imagined that the lesson we would learn from that service is that war is wrong. And that it's our government who's failed us by subjecting us to it time and time again. Neither of us saw that coming. How could we have? But maybe in 2009, the next year that we'll ring in together, we'll do so knowing that we'll spend that year together and not apart like we have every other year since this war began. I may be tired, but I hope, hang on to that hope.
In high school, Like most young adults that age, I failed to see the dual nature of academia. It wasn't simply about learning, but about proving to the world the workload you could handle. I was not a likely candidate for the Marine Corps. And when some asked me why I joined, I say I did it because they wouldn't hire me at the record store. However, in the Marines, I learned the reward of hard work, coupled with the pain of complacency. I learned to strive and to succeed, regardless of my physical or mental condition. I strive to be the best I can be. And in 4 years, I attained the rank of sergeant, received the commendation for my performance in combat, and other citations for operations prior. Today, my life no longer simply belongs to me. My failures, my successes, they're not my own. My life is a privilege that I recognize every day, and every day wasted is like spitting on the dead. Some of my peers have suffered mentally from the trauma that is combat. Their lives have come to a halt because of the grief they feel. I tell them that they should be nothing less than joyous. Life goes on. And we should be extremely grateful in every minute given to you. Remember the dead, yeah. But remember foremost the life you can live in their memory.
Where to even begin? Well, let me just say that any hatred I had for being forced to stay in Wisconsin 2 days longer dissolved the moment I arrived. At least 20 police squad cars were lined up, waiting to escort us the last few miles of the armory. Each one of them had their lights and sirens blazing. It was an amazing sight. It had Miss No Emotions over here choked up a little bit. We snaked our way through the residential streets, and with all the noise, people came out of their houses to see what the deal was. It was a forced parade. It's fantastic. And we passed a couple of elementary schools, and all the kids came out of their schools to wave these little flags. But the killer of all killers was this older man, at least of the World War II era, who stood outside the sidewalk in front of his house, saluting our bus as we passed. And really had to choke back the tears for that one. It's been hard convincing myself that I'm home. When we were released by our commander, I could not get enough hugs from my family and the people in my unit. And somewhere along the line, I had forgotten how good it feels just to be hugged. I've been having a great time visiting friends and family, and everything's pretty much on hold until I can get enough visits under my belt. I'm sure I won't start to feel normal again until I can get a routine down. But here is a short list of things that have totally freaked me out this past week. Okay, number 1, no shower shoes. Number 2, the tingle on my back from where my weapon used to rest. Number 3, the way my body is exhuming toxins like this pimple ranch on my face for crapping 3 times a day. Number 4, blowing my nose and seeing normal looking boogers. No sand or dirt. And number 5, missing the people in my unit so bad, it's threatening ulcers.
I've been giving a lot of thought to Iraq and its deployment and how things have changed for me. You know, when I first got to Fort Carson, leadership wouldn't even say if we were going to Iraq. Yeah, they said Southwest Asia. They even called it the sandbox. They said, oh yeah, we're going to go play in the sandbox. What is that? We didn't play. It was war. We worked. I don't know. And we didn't build sandcastles. We tore down walls. I thought we were going to bring peace to a place, to create a place where freedom could grow. Yeah. I thought we could just pull some flags. Oh, yeah. Well, we pulled some nasty. I got the shit from the neighbor's cat. I don't know, maybe. Yeah. When you do pull weeds, it does turn into a garden, but I hope to God one day the children can play, and those people can grow, and that place can thrive. You know? There's a lot of work to be done over there. And I certainly hope they can get the job done. In the meantime, I'm home. Yeah.
At 7,000 feet and looking back, running lights blacked out under the wings and America waiting. A year of my life disappears at midnight. The sky a deep meridian. The house lights below as small as matches burned down to embers. Has this year made me a better lover? What will I understand of hardship, of loss? Will a lover notice it in my kiss, my touch? What do I know of redemption and sacrifice? What will I have to say of the dead? That it was worth it? That any of it made sense? I have no words to speak of war. I never dug the graves at Talafar. I never held the mother crying at Ramadi. I never lifted my friend's body when they carried him home. I have only the shadows under the leaves to take with me. The quiet of the desert, the low fog at Balad, the orange groves with ice forming on the rinds of the fruit. I have the voice of a woman crying in my ear late at night when the stars grow dim. Moonlight and sand as the resonance of the dust of bones, and nothing more. I've been all over the country, reading and speaking at different events. The poetry's taken on a life of its own. I think if I'd written on a different subject, work issues, labor issues, and I'd gotten praise for the craftsmanship of the poetry, I think I could take more enjoyment in that praise. Go out to dinner, have that bottle of champagne to celebrate. But I have to temper the applause with the fact that a guy did put a trigger to his head and shot 6 to 8 rounds into his skull, and that's a poem in here. I'm being praised because some guy shot himself in the head. I know that's not what it is, but that's part of what it is. It's problematic for me.
This place has held me hostage from everything I previously knew. And now, by the grace of God, I'm about to be set free. I have learned much about myself during this time, and though this experience has been difficult, I have no regrets. I mean, being here has changed me, and I know that ultimately it will be for the better. I once read somewhere that going into a combat zone is a one-way door, since the person that leaves is not the same person that returns. This new person he is committed to being a better husband, father, and friend. I have felt the pain of leaving all that I hold dear, and I will not take it for granted again.
Today at church, I found myself thinking about a few hours between 8:30 and 2:30 p.m. That's the time that Joel passed, and my life changed forever. But as I'm going through this moment in life, I do find myself calling God daily, sometimes hourly. And as I go through this journey with my pain and my girls, I must remember always to call on God in any situation, good or bad, and teach my girls to do the same. I know that there must be an underlying meaning to all that's happening right now. I do feel that I'm learning new things about myself. How I handle pain, how I help my girls handle and understand their pain, how I have to remember to call on God for support and understanding and help through all the moments in life, and how I push away instead of pull in, and so many lessons.
My last day in the Marine Corps, I ran a Marine Corps marathon in Washington, D.C. Marathon's just an annual event that this year brought 30,000 runners. I hadn't been able to walk for half this year. But in a few short months, I went from hobbling to walking to running. I finished 26.2 miles in 4.5 hours.
Wow.
7,514th place. When people ask me why I ran a marathon, I usually tell them, because I've got 2 working legs. And if you've got the potential to do something, you should be doing it. When I ask myself, I say I ran for them.